Have you got a business and you want to promote your brand to a ready-made audience? Have you got a birthday coming up in the family and would like to send that someone special a special message? Then why not consider a sponsorship on the Football Out West show? With an ever-growing audience right across Melbourne's western suburbs and the surrounding regions of Wyndham, Melton, Geelong, and even as far as Ballarat, your business or that special person in your life could become a household name. More importantly, you will be armed with the knowledge you are being part of a football show that is fast becoming a movement and a catalyst for great change in our wonderful game locally. The revolution is here and we want you to jump on board and be a part of it. Good evening and a very warm welcome to you. You are tuning in to Football Out West. It's episode 25. My Lord, it is a massive show tonight. My name is Tonci Prusac. I'm one of the two co-hosts, one of the two wise monkeys each week that joins you on a Thursday at 7 p.m. And the other one is none other than Mr. Craig Filer, the golden tonsils of Australian football. Mr. Filer, how are you?
Very well, Tonch. Yaki Da. How is everybody?
I'm knackered. Absolutely knackered. And we have had an unbelievably crazy day today. We were meant to have Ivan Jolic on earlier today. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, he had to pull out basically last minute. But, mate, we have got super replacements, unbelievable replacements, haven't we?
We have, yeah. Look, it's very unfortunate that he even had to pull out. We obviously understand his reasons for it today, but rest assured he's going to be back on in the next couple of weeks. He's actually very disappointed that he couldn't make today. But, yeah, what a guest. I mean, we did a bit of ringing round and a bit of jumping on a few contacts that we've got today. And, yeah, really pleased to have our special guest on the show today. I think as a footballing icon, he is up there with the best year in Australia for sure.
Well, let's go through in synchronized order or systematically, whatever. What is going to happen on tonight? Well, first of all, mate, we're going to start off with the news desk. What is or isn't happening in the world of football? And, mate, a hell of a lot is happening, but it's not happening, but it will happen. After the news desk, you mentioned it, our first guest, the big kahuna of guests. He's going to be joining us live tonight. He's in the green room. He's the former Australian Institute of Sport AIS head coach. He's also a member of the new Starting 11, the FFA appointed think tank. Craig, massive coup.
Yeah, look, as I said, really pleased to get him on. He's a very interesting character. He's been in the game for a long, long time. I won't spoil his introduction, but rest assured, as I said, we're really pleased to have him on tonight. It's a great coup for us. And
also, we have to really thank our guest too, for that matter, Melton Phoenix FC president, MICHELLE WILLIAMSON, who's also got, I think, the assistant coach or the coach, the seniors coach coming on a little later on. They jumped in at the last chance when we were really, really almost desperate. But they're going to be talking a bit about their club's plan or intentions as far as returning to training. But straight after that, mate, the special announcement that we've been building this up. We're pretty excited about this, mate. We're not going to say too much now, rather to say it heralds an exciting new chapter for our show.
Yeah, look, I hope so, Tom. I think, I think the numbers that we're getting on a regular basis show that there's an appetite. So look forward to announcing what we've got coming up at the end of the show. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. Like without any rest, without further ado, we're going to go straight into the news desk, mate. Over to you. But there's been a lot of news happening in the last 7 days. In fact, just the last 5 days, I suppose. Let's start off with
look, the return to play, which is an interesting topic, should we say? Yeah, I know this was this came live actually on our sister show on the Geelong Soccer Show on Tuesday evening. While I think you're on air, Tonci, and the FF or the Football Federation's mandate of returning to play in Victoria has been let out of the bag, and I suppose clubs are allowed to train, or are they? Well, that's a hot topic for discussion tonight, I think, as well. So it's a strange one. They give out a report saying that clubs can return to play, but then the small print is once you've got permission from your landlords, the councils, you would have thought that this work would have been done prior to the statement coming out. Now clubs still have to wait 7 to 10 days before they can get on a training ground. It's nonsense.
I guess what's happening there is the clubs themselves have got a lot to do. There's like a 10-question questionnaire that has to be filled out, that has to be returned to the clubs. And I certainly know down when we broke the news, not only did we break the news, obviously, that Football Victoria had come out with the news, but also the City of Greater Geelong had also issued its almost like guidelines of what needed to be done. So there was a lot of the clubs. I do feel sorry for the clubs. There's so much behind the scenes that the clubs got to do. And in many cases, the clubs then have to fill out this questionnaire, get that back to the council, and then it's almost like applying to use the council facilities and to prove that they're going through everything. Now, it's interesting. I was speaking to a couple of clubs that night, and they were saying they still don't know exactly what is involved. Obviously, since then, we have found out that there's multitude of restrictions involved. One of those is it's obviously non-contact training. You can't do heading. You can't do certain skills. It's really just basically a glorified skills session, isn't it? Hello?
Yeah, look, it is. It's very, very disappointing. We keep saying that we have to protect our... Can you hear me?
Yeah, you've got really bad. Yeah, we can. It's just got very bad internet reception on your end, it seems. I can hear you, though.
Can you hear me okay now?
I can, mate. I can. Anyway, we'll keep on going. We'll talk about the Melbourne Knights. Now, the Melbourne Knights have come out with a statement just as of yesterday, and they're actually, Craig, deciding that they're going to put a hold on any return. What's the news there, mate?
Well, they've put out a statement, but can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, but vision's pretty poor. So it's bad. It's a bad internet reception, but we'll still go through with it.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah.
You've got a black spot in Werribee.
Yeah, look. So so just on the return to play, Melbourne Knights have come out and basically given their statement on how it's going to look. And I'll read a little bit. Taking the aforementioned into consideration, our decision is to wait until the 31st of May before being informed as per the following. The guidelines announced by the Sports and Recreation do not resume. The current guidelines provided by Football Federation based on SRV's recommendation that sessions will allow only small groups of 10 on half a pitch and shooting drills while practicing social distancing. No games, head-in, throw-ins, etc. It then goes on to basically say that Unclear as to insurance and the coverage provided by Football Victoria to its players, volunteers and club directors in relation to COVID. 100% responsibility played on the clubs by both Football Federation and councils in relation to COVID. The risk on the club's reputation regarding player safety during this uncertain times. He then goes on to say, although not an easy decision, we would still like feedback from our players and players' families on their thoughts about returning to training. Shortly, we will be sending out a survey to hear thoughts on whether you would be comfortable returning to training. We acknowledge that sport is very important to the overall well-being and mental health of our players and their families. As much as we would love to return to normality, the landscape in this global pandemic is constantly changing, and it would be remiss of the club not to put the well-being of our community front and centre. We hope you appreciate and understand the cautious course of action we're taking. The decision has been made on a whole club basis and is applicable to all Melbourne Knights Football Club teams from the NPL seniors, women's, juniors and mini roos. So that's a really big statement from one of the biggest clubs in Victoria there to not resume training until at least the 31st of May, Tonci.
Absolutely. And look, our sources inform us that out of the 14 NPL clubs, no less than 9 and possibly 10, but no less than 9 are actually against returning. For various reasons. We've seen what the Melbourne Knights are suggesting, and I'd probably venture to say they've had some legal advice sought, and they seem to be taking a legal, a liability angle, which is absolutely 100% okay. There are other clubs that are talking, it's going to cost too much money. That they're not going to be able to recoup, especially if there's no spectators or anything like that. So the bottom line is the NPL is not too interested. However, NPL 2 and NPL 3, Craig, now you've got a little bit of attention here.
Certainly comes out with.
Hello? Really bad intercept.
Yep, go on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say really bad.
I can hear you.
Okay. So we're hearing that the NPL 2 clubs and the NPL 3 clubs, or the majority of them, are very much keen to get back onto the field. So there could be a little bit of a stoush happening off the field, so to speak.
Yeah, look, I think as we said last week, if everybody's got to come back. It can't be one rule for one rule for another one. I do get the situation that the NPL clubs find themselves in, and nobody wishes this on anybody, especially small football clubs. But the reality is that football we have to restart at some point. Unfortunately, for a lot of these clubs, they pay big wages, and when they pay big wages for an amateur sport, this potentially happens. So look, there's a bit of soul searching and some negotiations to go on at certainly at Football Federation, but it'd be devastating if we don't kick it off. And I think implications could come further down the line should clubs decide not to return to play, and so it should.
Yeah, positive or negative side of this, I guess, is the fact that the positive side of promotion relegation is what we're fighting for in Australian football at the moment. I guess if there is a negative side of it is that right from NPL up the top to State League 5 down the bottom, the issue of promotion relegation affects everyone. If we're not going to have promotion relegation, say in the state leagues, then what's going to happen? The clubs at the top of the state league tree are going to be very, very disappointed that they won't be able to get into the NPL, or clubs further down the field. I know clubs, I know Barwon Soccer Club down in Geelong. We've just lost Craig. I know Barwon Soccer Club down in Geelong. They've recruited very heavily, and they have got basically a promotion at all costs kind of attitude to State League 5 this year. Now, obviously, they're going to want to do. They're going to want to have promotion this year. If there's no promotion, some of those clubs have been talking, well, there's no point in playing then. And I totally get that in many ways. Hello, Craig is coming back on. I'm hopeful. Whilst we're waiting for Craig to come back on, and he seems to be having major internet issues, Maxi Santich, good old Maxi Santich, is saying, internet issues have been reported by telcos in parts of Western Melbourne in the last 24 hours due to poor weather and high demand affecting audio and visual internet interaction. So if people are wondering what the hell is going on, there you know, 100% that's the reason now. So while we wait for Craig to come back on, look, other interesting things that have been happening on Sunday. Optus Sports had their State of Football panel. It was the third one that they've had, and certainly this was a very interesting one. Whereas the first one really kicked things off, this third one now is starting to talk about the intricacies of what needs to happen. So the first episode, as they said on the Optus Sports website, the State of Football posed a lot of questions about the game in Australia. On Sunday, our panel of legends discussed some proposals to move forward. Now, one of the interesting ones was posed by Mark Schwarzer, where he was actually talking about the structure of a second division and what it should look like. And here we go. Hopefully we've got Craig back on deck. Yes, Craig's back. How are you, Craig? Can you hear us?
Yeah, hi, guys. Sorry, it's I can. The internet is very bad here this evening. I don't know what's going on, but everything seems to be down. So do apologise for that.
Yeah. Now, as I was while you were off air, Maxi Senti had sent us a comment saying internet issues have been reported by the telcos to be down in parts of Western Melbourne in the last 24 hours. So obviously that's the issue that's affecting things at the moment. But nonetheless, we're gonna push ahead. Now, Craig, we started talking about the State of Football panel that they had on Optus Sports on the weekend. And one of the things that they talked about, Mark Schwarzer raised his proposal, if you like, as to the makeup of a second division. You had some thoughts about that? Hello? Hello, Craig?
Hello, Tonci.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
It can. Certainly can. Second division, what it should look like. Mark Schwarzer suggested a model where it would involve basically 3 conferences to cut down on geographical costs. Did you want to make a comment about that?
Look, let's hold off on that one for a minute, Tonci, because I think our guest might have some comments on that later on in his discussions with us.
Sounds good. And the last bit of news is basically news that has just come to hand in the last couple of hours is basically the FFA is looking at hubs to complete the A-League season. Now, you've spoken to an insider at one A-League club. I don't know if you want to disclose that or it's up to you. But there is talk that the season will be resuming, not so much shortly, but in the medium term. Craig?
Yeah, look, I've had it on very good authority today that training will resume for the A-League clubs on June the 20th, with a proposal of a start date on the 20th of July, which is obviously 4 weeks later. There's a number of obviously things that they need to address before that, but initial signs are that the remaining fixtures of the A-League will start from the 20th of July, which is encouraging.
Well, at least there's a date. I mean, Bruce Gitte from Adelaide United came out in the press the other day saying at least if we had some sort of date or something to give us an idea. All the other codes, AFL, NRL, they've all been very, very proactive in giving some sort of an indication as to when things may start. With football, which often seems to be the case, we didn't have too many details. Now, someone said, even if we just have people coming out and saying we don't know, but at least come out and say you don't know, at least so we've got some information. But now we finally do have some information. And, end of July is looking pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, that's the feedback today. So let's hope that that's right, and I have no reason to doubt the information. So
now it's good to see a lot of people on the comments. They're very, very active, as is always the case. Keep your comments coming, folks. We've got some major guests coming, and our guest very shortly is going to be, like I said, he's the biggest of them all. So do put your comments in the comments section below as well. Stay with us. It could be a long show tonight. I'm tipping we're going to go for an hour and a half, but there's some major announcements later on in the show. There's some major guests. There's going to be a lot of interesting information. So do stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we do return, we're going to have a very important guest coming up. Have you got a business and you want to promote your brand to a ready-made audience? Have you got a birthday coming up in the family and would like to send that someone special a special message? Then why not consider a sponsorship on the Football Out West show? With an ever-growing audience right across Melbourne's western suburbs and the surrounding regions of Wyndham, Melton, Geelong, and even as far as Ballarat, your business or that special person in your life could become a household name. More importantly, you will be armed with the knowledge you are being part of a football show that is fast becoming a movement and a catalyst for great change in our wonderful game locally. The revolution is here, and we want you to jump on board and be a part of it. Welcome back to the Football Out West show. It's episode 25, and Craig, our next guest, needs no introductions, but nonetheless, we're going to go. Nonetheless, we're going to make a little bit of an introduction. Hey.
Yeah, look, this guy doesn't need an introduction, and it gives me real great pleasure to welcome what I believe is a true icon in the Australian football. And I'm going to let one of the ex-Socceroos have his little say on our guest. Bear with me 1 second.
A lot of things that have happened in my career are a result of the great Ron Smith. 2 wonderful years with him. Possibly a footballing mentor to me. Great knowledge of the game. Very easy to pass his knowledge on to you as a player. And really gave me the tools and the equipment I needed to go on to become a professional footballer. He taught me how to be better with the ball, how to be better without the ball. And I think all round in the 2 years I was there, I went from a kid with a dream to a kid who realised that dream was very achievable. And I owe that all to Ron.
Well, so there's a great little insight and a little bit of a testimonial there from an ex-Socceroo, Lucas Neal, who obviously holds our next guest in very high esteem. So I suppose it gives me a great pleasure to welcome Sir Ron Smith to the Football Out West show.
United. Okay.
Ron, how are you?
Thanks,
it's
guys.
an absolute pleasure to have you. And first of all, thank you very much for jumping in at the last minute. Ivan Jolic owes you a big one after that.
I'll remind him of that next time I talk to him.
Craig, are you still with us? We've got Andrew.
I am.
Andrew Bozinov is making a comment. What is wrong with Tonci tonight? Struggling, Chief. Mate, I'm having to carry Craig as well as myself. That's why I'm struggling today. Internet problems going absolutely crazy tonight, eh, Craig?
Yeah, it's not good, guys. I'm not sure. Can you hear me okay now or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away, Craig. Fire away.
Yeah. All right. So I'm actually going to switch myself off in a couple of minutes and see if I can reset. So if I do go off, guys, I'll be back as quick as I can. So one question I really want to start with, Ron, and it's a big one for me, because obviously you were heavily involved in the very early stages back in 2004, 2005, and I suppose the biggest influence on Australian football has been the Socceroos, or that golden generation of 2006.
Mm-hmm.
What has led us to the situation that we find ourselves in today?
There are many contributing factors, Craig, and I don't claim to have all the answers, but what I can do is I can reflect on what led to 2006 and what's happened since. And I believe that you can learn from history, and what the key to making sense of it all is to try and apply the things that were deemed to be working back in those days. In how can you implement the same kind of ideas, but in a different environment of today? Because society has changed considerably when we talk about players and generations of players. The young guys of today have a very, very different background and upbringing compared to the likes of your Lucas Neals and Mark Vidukas and Josip Skokos when they were young players. And we're going back 30 years when they were probably 10 and 11. So I think that always has to be kept in mind. But back in 2005, we'd had a very successful youth development program at the AIS, where I worked there for 14 years. And that had been going for 24 years when 2006 was around, 2005. We'd also had state institutes of sport to identify and develop players, not only for the Joeys, but also for the national youth team and for the AIS intake. So there was a network of people right across the country who were working to identify and develop talent from the age of 13 and 14 all the way through until they played at under 20. I often get credited with a lot of responsibility for the golden generation, and I was privileged to work at the sharp end where I was polishing the gems. But I had a tremendous support network of people all over the country working in the state institutes. You know, on a local level, Ian Greener and Ernie Merrick both were instrumental in setting up the VIS in the early 90s. So by 2005, we'd had state institutes for nearly 13 years. And then all of a sudden, the A-League came along. And while it was great, it was really exciting. It coincided with the qualification for the World Cup. What happened at that time then, we actually changed the whole infrastructure of football. And from 89 until 2005, we'd had the North and Southern divisions of the National Youth League, which allowed approximately 400 players in the youth age group to choose whether they wanted to play summer and winter. And that was supported by the AIS and VIS programs in each state.
So for the younger, Ron, just to cut you off there. So for, I guess, the people that are maybe newer to football, that probably weren't aware of the old system. In effect, that back in those days when we had the National Youth League plus the winter competitions, it enabled a lot of those players, the junior players, to be playing all year round.
That's right.
And how did that function? Was it overload? You know, these days we hear a lot overload. How did the young players accept that?
Well, the option to play in the summer was only for players really who were eligible to play in the Youth World Cup. It wasn't every age group. It was only the older kids. So the younger ones didn't play all summer. They played in the winter. Then they went and played cricket and surfed and did all those sorts of things that are normal for kids, right? But when players get serious in their teenage years and decide, I want to have a crack at being a player, you don't have thousands. You only have hundreds of players who have that, if not, objective. And so the National Youth League, that was not only supported by all the NSL clubs, but the state institutes and so on, it was an opportunity for anybody that fancies their chances to actually have a go. And after 2005, that all disappeared. So for many years, we didn't have anything in the summer. For about 4 or 5 years, there was no opportunity. And I can go back to the 70s. I was the first coaching director in Victoria in 1975. And along with other coaching directors, we used to say, How can we expect to compete with the rest of the world when we only play 6 months of the year? And we used to refer to that as the 6-month mentality. Because when I first came to Australia in '74, when the grand final of footy was played in the middle of September, the next day you could go down to get your bottle of milk and the Sunday papers, and there would be thousands of people all in white gear. And I can remember going home and saying to my wife, quick, get in the car. You've never seen anything like this before. And I drove through Clifton and Northcote, and there were thousands of people all out playing cricket. I'd never seen that in England.
Yeah.
I lived there, you know, but that was it then for the next 6 months. So people would get their boots out in March and then start up again for 6 months. So we always talked about that. And then when football went to summer, it gave us the opportunity of playing summer and winter, but it was only for a select group. You're probably less than 500 players in the country.
Yeah, yeah.
But it, you know, it provided the opportunity for the ones that were serious. And really, let's face it, you know, they're the ones that need to provide extended opportunities for. We had that. And then all of a sudden, it all got cut away because nobody really looked below the A-League to see what was going on. And we really haven't recovered from it.
Now, you made it, speaking to you earlier today, off camera, you made a comment that between the NSL dying and the introduction of the A-League, there was 12 to 18 months of basically of no activity for the elite footballers in this country.
At least a year. Yeah, at least a year.
Yeah. Now, you made a comment, and it was an interesting comment, where you said basically that's when our football infrastructure disappeared. What did you mean by that, and how detrimental to the development of our overall football, I guess, development was that period pre the A-League launching?
In my opinion, it was a critical factor. And unfortunately, even the PFA have written some great reports recently, but none of them have actually acknowledged that for 15 years or more, kids had the opportunity to play 10, 11 months of the year. And then all of a sudden, that opportunity was taken away. And I think that had a major contributing factor for the, if you like, you know, the generation that eventually qualified for the World Cup, even though they were split over, you know, an age range, as all national teams are. The fact is, they all played. See, all those kids played in the old NYL and during the winter for NSL clubs and so on. So, you know, I just look at what does it take to produce players? You need opportunity to play and train. Okay. I believe in getting the best with the best. And that was certainly the aptitude and the way the state institutes were structured. But we changed all of that. Since 2005, we've done almost the complete opposite. Our coaching scheme, for example, was always player-centred. It was about developing players. And then after, when the A-League started, we had, because Gus I worked with Gus. He was great for Australian football, and we qualified in the World Cup and so on, and did very well there at 2006. But we had then technical directors from Holland. And so they wanted to implant a system that works in Holland in Australia. And unfortunately, we've got nothing in common with Holland.
And it's interesting you say that. I think last week, or was it the week before, Craig actually made a point of this, Craig Filer, who's just gone walkabout. And he made a point that I think he was when we had Peter Filopoulos, the Football Victoria CEO, on. It might have been Ivan Jolic, in fact, where he made the comment that have we, as a footballing nation, tried too much to be like other countries, too much to copy someone else's style, when really we should have been developing and maybe should have been working on our uniquely Australian style. And you had something to say, particularly about the technical element of our players, or the lack of, or the perceived lack of talent, technical ability in say, players 15, 20 years ago. But since then, we haven't really done anything on the technical element of it.
No. What the emphasis after we had the Dutch TDs come in was we were going to play one system of play. So for 10 years, we played the 1-4-3-3. Now, okay, so there's little variations in it, but it was like mandated. Now, the other thing that we stopped doing was teaching technique to coaches. Stopped doing that, which is fundamental for me to being a coach. So if we just assume that everyone knows lots of things about teaching technique, then in my eyes, that's foolish. You know what the old assumption says, it makes an ass out of you and me. Well, I think that's true. Yeah. So I think there's all these contributing factors. We went away from player-centered coaching to develop individuals. That's what the AIS was all about. Okay. And the state institutes, their emphasis was on producing good individuals, okay, within a team structure. And if you can't teach us a team to adapt and play a different kind of system in a few weeks, well, in my opinion, you're not much of a coach.
Now, one of the other things you mentioned, sorry to cut you off, there's so much to talk about. One of the other things you did mention that really resonated was the culture as well at the AIS. So it was all about really like, teaching the boys to work hard, to hard work, to have almost a full-time, well, it wasn't almost, it was a full-time workload, but also they had to pass their studies. So it wasn't just about them as far as they're on the field and conducting themselves as footballers, but a lot of it had to do with how they conducted themselves away in the classroom and that sort of stuff. Did the A-League clubs, when they introduced their individual academies, did they have that? Did they emphasize that element of culture as well, or was it purely just looking at the football side of things?
Well, initially it'll be about the football side. I'm not overly critical of what the A-League clubs have tried to do in terms of what they can offer youth players. What I'm saying is none of them will come close to what the AIS offered. Okay? I mean, for starters, you only had to walk 300 metres to get to training. Whereas I know there are lads in Sydney who are travelling 3 hours every day to get to training. And there's 3 hours wasted in my book. Or something has to be sacrificed. It's either your education or your training. Okay? So they're the downsides. Okay? There may be more players, but I still believe in the idea that Gerard Houllier said to me when I went to Liverpool for a month. He said, Ronnie, you've got to get the best with the best, in the best facilities with the best coaches. He said, that is our motto in France. And we've stuck to it, and they still stick to it to this day. So they haven't changed their system. Their kids still play in their clubs, but they go and spend 5 days in a centre and then go home and play for their clubs on the weekend, see mum and dad, and so on and so on. So they've stuck to their system. The sad bit here was that we couldn't wait to get rid of our system, even though it proved to be very successful, because it didn't quite align with what happens in Europe. So we blindly just follow what happens in Europe when we've got nothing in common. And I'll say this. If you were to get everyone in Australia to sell up and we'll all move to Tasmania, we could then do what Holland do or Belgium do. You can fit Belgium in half of Tasmania. They're 11 or 12 million people. And that's the same geographic size as Holland, where you've got 40 professional clubs. You could have youth tournaments and kids could ride their bike home and have lunch. Here, you spend $250,000 on airfares. So we should stop copying or trying to copy what goes on and just look at the elements that actually help produce players.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I guess, that when you talk about the costs and the vast geographical distances that we have here in Australia, is the limitation of the implementation or the limits of the implementation of a second-tiered competition. We spoke about the State of Football panel on the Optus Sport channel the other night, where Mark Schwarzer actually suggested having 3 different distinct geographical channels. Conferences in a second-tier competition. If somehow we get the second tier up and running, or the second division up and running, mate, in your opinion, will that solve all the problems of giving the young players a go?
It will increase the opportunities because you'll have a perceived number, a higher number of clubs at a perceived level of competition that you hope will be above what is the next level at the moment, the NPL. Now, I've always been a believer, and I still am. If you're good enough, you're old enough. Okay? So however many conferences you have and however many teams you have in it, you're going to have to prove that you're worth picking every week. And I don't care if you're 16 or 36.
Yep.
You know, so, and then you will have the what you might call the club's philosophy coming in, where they might say, well, we're not going to have too many players. We're going to be a club that develops players, and that's fine. So you may prefer to use younger players and give them a go rather than older ones. But if you look at the A-League, every coach that's done that, and I'm one of them, has been sacked. Okay? So it happened to me at Perth. I had 7 players in the Olyroos, and I lost them all for 2 weeks at a time. I got sacked after 12 weeks. End of my A-League career. All right? So what you're asking is coaches to say, yes, I'll voluntarily sacrifice my career to develop players. It ain't going to happen.
Ain't going to happen.
They're still going to pick people on merit. And I think that is the only thing that players should be chosen by. So, you know, that's my view. Yes, so broaden the conferences so you bring in more areas geographically where we've got big populations in the country. Terrific. But don't legislate to give people games because of their age. That would be my view.
On our comments section, on our comments feed, we're getting a lot of comments really criticising the A-League system, the creation of the A-League as a whole, and in a nutshell, Ron, the A-League, has it been positive for Australian football or has it been negative for Australian football?
I think it's been really positive. When you look at the crowds and the interest that's been generated, when we were talking off camera, you used the term, it's become accepted in the media far more than it ever was in the NSL days. But I don't think we can sit on that. We've got to keep evolving as a country and trying to improve things. And I think that is really the frustration that people have had. I can remember playing against Melbourne Victory on a Thursday night, Melbourne Cup week, and we had 23,000 people at Etihad Stadium. That wouldn't have happened in the NSL days. I played for South Melbourne back in the mid-70s. And we used to, when we played Heidelberg, you were guaranteed somewhere between 10 and 15,000 at Middle Park. But that was a big derby, the Greek derby, so to speak.
Yep.
But, you know, that was a one-off. Our average crowds were around 3,500 to 4,000, and we were the top team in the league at the time. So I think in terms of the media coverage, the interest worldwide, you know, the A-League is now watched. Whenever something is broadcast, the A-League is watched by many, many people all over the world. So that's got to be a positive for Australian football.
I guess we use the term
perfect.
Yeah, but I guess we use the term that it has been mainstreamed. And look, I can understand a lot of people who, particularly a lot of the people that listen to our show that come from the western suburbs of Melbourne, they've really felt that they've been treated unfairly, unjustly. And I guess that has been vindicated in many ways with ex-Socceroos from the golden generation coming out saying that, people who are involved with the game now saying that. And look, the FFA Cup was phenomenal. It just, as Simon Hill said last week, it's the highlight of his annual calendar, but it's just come probably a little bit too late. So there's still a lot of bad blood 15 years later. Look, we've got Craig back. He's like Lazarus. He's risen from the dead. Craig, are you with us? Stay with us, son. Stay with us.
He's on. I think, can I just, while he's getting his internet sorted, I think the FA Cup has been brilliant.
Hasn't it?
Right. When I was a young player in England, the first game that you played at the start of the season was an FA Cup qualifier. right? And the final was like 9-10 months later in May. But the first game you'd play in August was usually an FA Cup qualifier on a regional basis. And that was how it worked. If you got out of your tiny little zone, you went into a slightly bigger zone, and so on and so on. So that always gives any club, any level, something to aim for and an opportunity to participate. And I think that's all people want. One of the things, Craig might bring this up, but I'm a little bit over people moaning and whining about not playing enough football. And my attitude is organise more games then. There must be people who want to play football. Now, they don't all have to be competitive to play games. When I was at the AIS, I used to aim for 50-plus games a year for the squad. Mm-hmm. You had 16 outfield players and 2 goalies. And most years, we got a minimum of 50 games.
Okay, we're talking elite players. We're talking elite juniors. And I want to get back to this. You know, the so-called criticism of overload. I don't believe in it personally. I think Craig will tell you he had Cardiff City coaches come early in the year and they said, kids, under 9s, under 10s in Wales, play up to 100 games a year. 100 games a year. Where our mini roos here in Victoria, if they're lucky, played 14 to 16 games a year. Unless you organise extracurricular tournaments and what you're not. 14 to 16 a year. And parents are going to talk about overload. We're overloading our kids. What is going on?
You see, overload for me only becomes an issue when you start talking about the higher ends of intensity in games. As a kid, and this is what we've got to be careful about, is that we do the same. We think under 9s are the same as under 19s. They're not. They're little creatures who, when they get tired, they'll just stop. And it doesn't matter what you say to them. They won't move again until they feel like moving again. So, they're a law unto themselves. And they will go out and play. If you've had kids yourself, you'll know they'll play, they'll run about, then they'll all sit down and have a chat for 5 minutes, then they'll get up and play again. That's the nature of the beast. And I think I am dead against too much structured football for 9-year-olds. I think they should be allowed to be kids and do whatever they want and provide opportunities for them to actually just go and play.
Now, Ron, you've got a really interesting take on that, and you've got a real interesting suggestion. You believe our clubs, our football clubs, should become a lot more like play centres. Explain. That's a really good point that you brought up earlier today.
Well, I've got a very close friend of mine in Canberra who's had a very successful business for over 10 years. And he works with kids from 3 up. All right? And he sees them for year after year. And he has what you might call a beginners program. Mm-hmm. So he might have kids who are beginners and they could be 4, 5 or 6. But they're all beginners. So they haven't had a head start. And so he gives them competency tests, so to speak. And they're targets for the kids to work on so they can go to the next group and the next group and so on. So he has them all kind of colour-coded. And so the kids have specific things. Like, I'll give you a quick example. Just being able to run with the ball and change direction and doing it certain ways, because there's different ways of changing direction. So he builds all those sorts of things in. Now, they're engaging. Young kids normally love things that it's all about me and what I can do. And you compare that with putting a young kid who's a beginner into a game with people who may have been playing for 12 months or longer, is completely lost. And you've only got to watch some of the kids that go on at half-time in the A-League games and internationals, and you can see they're not really playing football. They're just having a kick at the ball whenever it comes near them. Now, let them do that by all means, but not all the time. So we need to structure things according to ability rather than age. And I just think that the opportunity for clubs to say, come here and play, yes, and let them play and just supervise so it's safe environment. And if kids want some help, have some helpers there. Say, if you want some help, come and, or I could help you with something. Would you like? Yes or no? It's up to the kids.
Now, Craig, last week we had, sorry to cut you off, Ryan. Last week, Craig, we had Danny Tiardo on, ex-Socceroo great, now and a product of the West here. Now, Danny made a good comment. He said we should be having the best coaches coaching the seniors and the best coaches coaching those under 7s through to about the under 9, under 11s, because that's when you shape a kid. That's when you really start to mold a kid. And if the coach is just a parent, or it's nice, it's great to have that, or an enthusiastic adult, but having quality coaches that are going to really instill the fundamentals in the I guess that's the most important thing, isn't it? Having great coaches at that level. I'm having an echo here.
Okay, can I answer that for you? If you talk to an awful lot of the kids or players about what they did as kids, they'll tell you that basically it wasn't from coaching at clubs. It was the home environment. You probably know Tom Byer. I speak to Tom on a regular basis, and he's a big believer in this. He talks about football starts at home, and it's the environment at home that can actually enable kids to have what he calls ball manipulation skills. He says the last thing you ought to worry about is teaching someone how to kick the ball. That one of the biggest obstacles that kids have playing football is being able to receive it and move it and change direction, stop, roll the ball to somewhere else. All of that sort of stuff can be learned at home. I've interviewed many of the Socceroos over the years, and they've all told me the same story. That basically football started at home, in the garden, mum and dad. The younger siblings have the older brothers to play with and so on. But that's where they learn their initial techniques. Ned Zelich, for example, told me he didn't join a club until he was 9 years of age. But when he first joined the club, they put him immediately into the under 11s. But he'd had no coaching as such. Ned developed all of his techniques playing in the garden and in the street and in the park. Joe Simnich was the same. And I'll bet Josip, if you ask Goats the same, I'll bet he'll tell you exactly the same thing.
Well, there's a classic story of Mark Verduka at the AIS where I think Josip Skoko's told his story thousands, millions of times. He couldn't sleep, and he got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and just heard this thudding where he was just juggling the ball against the wall, just practicing his skills. Is that truth or is that a myth?
Well, I can tell you, we used to have there was a big shot putter called Paul Nandapi. It was a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger and better looking. Okay, Nandapi came into my office one day and he said, Ronnie said, because some of the older athletes have been there for years, so you get to know the older athletes. And he said to me, Ronnie said, if you don't stop this lad heading the ball against the wall, he said, there's going to be some tears and they're not going to be mine. So he said, you better sort it out before the weightlifters do. So that was when I had to confiscate his ball. Yeah, that's a true story.
And that made him even hungrier for the ball. Now, we've got some good comments coming up through the feed. John Sultana says, parents complaining about overload, that's because they are doing karate on Monday, soccer Tuesday, swimming Wednesday, soccer Thursday, and dancing on Friday. It's a bit maybe comical, but it's actually really, really right. Have the kids today got it too well? Have they got too many options? And is that what you're going on about? Society has changed today compared to 15 years ago?
Yeah, there's so many competing entertainment things. I'll tell you this little story. I used to say to my two boys, listen, when I was your age, we used to have to get up at 5 a.m. and lick the road clean before we could go out in the car. And they'd give me, oh, Dad. And they'd get the old violin out, and this. And then one day, my son Barney said to me, he said, look, Dad, he said, I know, he said, I'm not being a smart ass here, but he said, it's not our fault. He said, I bet your mum and dad did everything they could for you as a kid. And I said, yeah, they did. And he said, and you're no different. He said, you try and provide the best for us because you're our dad. True? And I said, yeah. And he said, so don't blame us. And from that day on, I never got on my soapbox to my kids about what I didn't have that they've got. And I thought to myself, he's absolutely spot on, young man. And that was me. I never, ever put that into them again. And so I would say the same now, that do we want to deprive kids of iPads? No. They're a part of life for the next generation. I've got grandkids who can play on an iPad, right? 4 years of age. They know how to find games and entertain themselves, all sorts. They're becoming computer illiterate. So that's the future. So you don't want the kids to stop doing that. But what we've got to find is a way of saying, hey, you don't have to be doing that all the time. Come out and have some fun, And I think that's where we don't want to make the assumption that every kid that comes to training wants to become a superstar.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Like I worked at Football Victoria for a while, and I oversaw a massive, and still do see a massive participation growth rate in Geelong, for example, double-digit figures. It's growing ridiculously, and believe it or not, one of the many reasons of that growth is the fact that kids play PlayStation, Xbox. They play, FIFA 2020, and kids who don't normally play start watching that, and they want to then continue, and they want to. It's incredible. It's an amazing experience, but that's the world that we live in. So we got to get used to it, I guess.
It is, and you've got to embrace it. It's like a lot of coaches my age, they're not into software analysis programs. I did a PhD at the University of Canberra when I started that when I was 60. It took me 5 years to do it. So I've tried to keep up with things as I've got older. I've reinvented myself a couple of times in my lifetime of coaching, but I've had 40 years in the game full time. And the reason I've survived is because I've adapted. I've changed my role. I've worked for years in coach education. I've coached youth football at the AIS and so on. I've worked at grassroots. I've worked at the senior professional level here, overseas. I've run coach education systems, etc., etc. So, but I wasn't born with that. I've had to make choices about what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it and so on, and seek out opportunities. So, I would say what we've got to keep doing is we've got to keep evolving in the way we engage young people. But at a young age, I think we should de-emphasise playing for Australia and have fun. Because if you have fun and enjoy it, okay, and you start to play competition when you're ready for it, not when an adult says, okay, you're in the under-9s this week. I've got a couple of friends of mine who were very good players. Their kids have already given up the game before they're 9 because they did not like playing in a competition. They weren't ready for it, couldn't cope with it emotionally, but they're lost to the game now. And that's from people like you and I who have got football in their DNA. And I'd have been gutted if my kids had said to me at 9, I don't want to play football, Dad. But that's happening because of the pressures of playing in competition at 9.
There you go. So it's about that results. It's constant. And you see it. You do see it. I coached my little kid at under 9 level last year. And this year he would have been moving up to under 11s. And you do see a lot of it. You do see where even parents, I know we had a kid leave our team because he goes, oh, my dad says it's all about results, where we say it's about developing the kids. At that level, the results will come as a side effect.
Now, some kids are ready for it, though, Tonci, So let those, if you ask the kids, do you want to play in a competition? And if it's not compulsory to play every week, some might say, yeah, I wouldn't mind. Do you want to play next week? No, I don't think so. Actually, that would be their way of saying, no, that wasn't quite, I'm not ready for that yet.
Actually,
I'm not saying it's across the board. We should ask the kids.
Yeah, and I was going to say, is it not a problem with the kids as far as the competition? Because the kids are competitive. They want to know where they are on the ladder. It's the parents or the coaches. The coaches coach for results.
Yeah.
Craig, are you back with us? Can you ask a question? I'm all questioned out.
Are you? I am. I've had to switch everything off. I'm now on. My daughter's in the back garden with a pedal and water. She's going like the clappers down there at the moment.
You sure you're not in Swansea or in Cardiff,
Well, that's the clearest you've come through so far.
It is, actually.
Yeah. I have no idea.
Keep your daughter on a bike.
I have no idea where you're up to, guys. So I really do apologise. Very unprofessional of us, but unfortunately, the internet in Point Cookistan is down tonight.
No, that's okay. Ron, let's talk about the future. We've talked about the past. We've talked about the present. Let's talk about the future. You are one of the esteemed members of the starting 11, Football Federation Australia Task Force, a think tank. Hopefully, it's not just going to be a think tank. It's going to be a group that's going to be, I guess, able to implement change, real change. Your initial impressions about the group?
We had a discussion last night, actually.
Oh, hot off the press.
Yeah, that was timely. And the thing is, there's a lot of knowledge and experience amongst the group in the men and women. And obviously, they're going to reflect, like I do, on what's happened in the past and what was really important in their careers. What do they feel that was, the difference between maybe making that next step? Because one of the panel members spoke yesterday about life's full of making, little jumps. You play at this level, and if you're keen as a teenager, you want to get into a representative team, or you want to make the next step and get in the under-20s or the first team, and so on. So life's full of those little jumps, and it's preparing people and trying to help them make those little jumps. Now that that was part of the discussion, but what I'm saying is that the people on the panel have got a lot of knowledge and experience to draw on, not just from what they experience here, but also what they've witnessed overseas in professional football. And so that all comes on the table then. Our responsibility will be to look at some of the information and evidence that we're going to receive from FFA, where a lot of research has been going on, to gather data. So it's not just about an opinion, it's actually looking at the effects of what's happening now compared to what happens in other countries around the world. And are we on a par with it? Are we miles behind? And at the moment, it looks like the evidence is saying we're miles behind in terms of how much our young players play football. That's a standout. That seems to be an obvious one. So that will be something that we need to rectify ASAP. Then you start looking at the other things. So I guess initially it's going to be a case of let's look at the evidence, and there's a lot of it being gathered. What's the most important thing to try and rectify straight away, and come up with a list of priorities, and then say, how can we do this? What about this as an idea? You've already mentioned Schwartzy was talking about having 3 conferences. A friend of mine wrote me a paper from Brisbane. He wrote a paper and said, I would have 3 conferences, and this is where I would put them, because it's going to engage X number of more people. You've got more people at a local level who can identify with clubs. You'll build a bigger support base. So there'll be lots of other spin-offs that come out of maybe a restructure of the way we play our football. But also, I think one that's gaining momentum is, why don't we change our season time and have everybody playing, and then say, let's expand our competitions. So if the A-League and the NPL all start early in the year and they finish after, if the NPL play 30 matches and the A-League play 35 matches or 36 with finals on the end, you'll have a nice break over Christmas, and then you'll all be back into it again, and we'll be in line with Asia. Yeah. All sorts of things like that could be a spin-off. But the number one reason for doing it is to create more opportunities for people to play football, which is what we need.
Absolutely.
Because we ain't going to get better players unless they play. Yeah. Doesn't matter how good a coach you are. Yeah. If people don't play football, they don't get better.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that was brought up on the Optus show last week, Ron, where I think they were talking about that particular subject there about, maybe finishing the seasons in November. Having the grand final in Canberra, which is the capital city, like they do in the UK, where you have it in London. You won't have to go far, mate.
No, that's right. We don't.
That's right. That was Simon Hill talking about the FA Cup.
There's those little things, and I'm a big believer that if we have it in November, there's no other sport that it's going to interfere with apart from horse racing.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a big gap there open up. It's not going to involve the AFL. It's not going to involve cricket. We've got a window of opportunity there that we can really grasp. And we have to be in line with what Asia are doing. We have to.
Absolutely. Now, if you've just joined in and you've just fallen
again?
on the moon, we're speaking to Ron Smith, ex-head coach of the Australian Institute of Sport, and who's also a member of the Starting 11, the new FFA think tank. Don't go away, folks. Make sure you do stay to the end. We've got the fabulous trio from Melton Phoenix, led by President Michelle Williamson, coming on very, very shortly. They've been so patient. They've been waiting in the green room now for about an hour, but there's so much interesting the topics to discuss with Ron. And also at the very, very end of the program, Craig and I will be announcing a major new direction that the Football Out West show will be taking, and it's not so much are we changing seasons or changing dates, actually like that. It's actually we're expanding our level of services, which is pretty much, Ron, what we're talking about Australian football having to do. And it's not going to be for everyone. There are clubs, obviously, and there are players that say, no, we like playing football for 6 months of the year, and we like playing cricket for 6 months of the year. But those more talented, more elite juniors or footballers or youth players that do want to be playing 10 months of the year as opposed to 5 or 6 months of the year, this is that opportunity to give them that opportunity. Is that right?
Yep. I think that's it in a nutshell. I'm all for horses for courses. Like I said before, in the MYL days, we gave between 400 and 500 youth players the opportunity and the choice to play during the summer. And that satisfied that an awful lot of criteria by doing that. There are other benefits of doing that. We won't go into it, but talent ID for national junior teams is another major issue. At the moment, it's a nightmare. It's a selector's nightmare, and I feel sorry for Trevor, who's picking the under-17 squad, and Gary to some degree as well with the under-20s. They do not have a competition where you could say that they could go and watch and know that they're going to be looking at kids who can play in the youth teams.
Now, unfortunately, we seem to have lost Craig again. He's
gone.
He's going walkabout.
He's fallen off her bike.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. She's dehydrated. She's not used to this type of physical exertion. The youth of today, they spend too much time in front of computer screens and what you're not. Ron, we're going to have to wind it there, unfortunately.
Okay. No problem.
What will have? I mean, thank you once again. Thank you very, very much for jumping in at the last moment. But we'd love to have you back on again, maybe in a couple of weeks or whatever the case may be. Because
no problem.
Yeah, we would love to take this discussion even further. And look, I guess in a few weeks' time, we'll have an even clearer picture as to what's going to happen with the 2020 season, but also what's going to happen with football going forward. And he's back. I think he's back. Let's fingers crossed. Shoelaces crossed. He's back. Craig, how are you? We were just about to finish up with Ron, and hopefully you were going to come back on. But, any last words for Ron, Craig, or last questions?
Come on, Matty, quicker. Yeah, quicker, Matty. Come on, roll. Come on, quicker.
A little bit faster. She needs to get one of those bikes.
Yeah, a little bit faster. Sorry, guys. I really apologise for tonight. Being dreadful. I do apologise.
Yeah. Anyway,
victims of the internet at some stage.
Yeah. Before we go, Tommy Gavran says he's been texting Joe Simonic in Croatia, and Joe says g'day. So big cheerio out to Joe Simonic.
I'll catch up with Joe whenever he's back in Canberra. Yeah,
that's right, another Canberra boy. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Ron. On that note, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. We wish you all the very best, and rug up if it's going to be another cold Canberra night tonight.
Yeah, we're tough in Canberra.
Good to hear.
Okay, guys, thanks very much.
Good to hear. That was Ron Smith joining us. Craig, phenomenal interview. We could have really Craig moved out of Point Cookistan, Kaz Bilos says. Well, he's moving. You're going to be moving. You're going to be moving closer to civilization, aren't you? How is the house build going, by the way?
Well, not really. Not really, Tonci. I'm going to Werribee.
Anything's better than where you are at the moment. So, mate, we're going to take a quick break. When we do return, we've got the lovely Michelle Williamson, the president of Melton Phoenix, who's been very, very, very ambitious as a club president, but she's also been very, very patient. She's been waiting in the green room for a while. So do hang about. We'll be very, very quickly shortly with her. And don't go away. We've got a major announcement to make later on in the program, so do not go away. Welcome back to the Football Out West show. We're going live. We're live streaming on Facebook, and it's episode 25. Big cheerio to our sponsors, George Cross Football Club, home of Georgie's on Vista, and they will be our featured club next week. It will be a George Cross themed show next week's program. It's going to be massive. Craig has once again, we are having absolute nightmares with Craig Philo, our co-host. So in his space, we're going to introduce our next guest tonight, and she is the president of Melton Phoenix Football Club, Michelle Williamson. Michelle, welcome to the show, and thank you very, very much for being so patient in the green room tonight. How are you? Hello, Michelle. Can you hear us?
Oh, hello.
Hello. We've got you finally. And Craig's back. It's all happening, ladies and gentlemen. We've got everyone here.
Hello.
This is good to see. How are you, Michelle? Once again, welcome to the Football Out West show. You're in Melton. How are things out in Melton? How's coronavirus affecting you personally and affecting the Phoenix?
Hello.
Hello. Looks like, Craig, are you with us? The wonders of modern technology. Goodness me. Craig, it seems like that Point Cook, Werribee, isn't the only place hit. It looks like Melton is as well.
I'm gobsmacked. Can you hear me, Tonci?
I can hear you. Michelle, can you hear us?
Hi, Michelle. I think you're going to need to switch off and come back on again.
Okay, we'll do.
Oh, she heard us.
Yeah, there.
Oh,
Got you.
Yeah, okay, good.
How are you?
Nice.
Good, how are you going?
Yay.
Very well. We've had a nightmare tonight with down in Cumbranistan, in Point Cookistan with the internet connection tonight. So
oh, lovely.
Yeah. So,
Michelle, how are you? How's
No,
things?
that's okay. That's okay. I can't hear Tonci though.
Oh, there you go, Craig.
That's not a bad thing, to be fair. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So how's things? I'll step in for him while he's trying to get himself sorted. So how's things at Melton?
It's been a trying time. Oh, I think you're gone. Yep, there you're there.
Can't hear you at all now. It's gone.
No. Oh no.
We're going to take a little bit of a break and hello?
This is a disaster tonight, isn't it?
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a break. Once again, we're just going to have to go with a little bit of over to Georgie's on Vista. Okay, well, welcome back to the Football Out West show, take 2. Hopefully this time we can hear Michelle. Michelle Williamson, president of Melton Phoenix. How are you, Michelle? Let's try again. Yep. Hello, Michelle. You can finally we can hear you.
Yeah, good. How are you going?
Very good. It's the Football Out West blooper show. Brad Prusac, he's saying it is. It's just one of those things, unfortunately. What can we do but laugh about it? But let's talk some serious stuff. How's the coronavirus affected Melton Phoenix both on and off the park?
Yeah, it's been a trying, especially the last few weeks. But obviously,
we can't hear or see her
like everybody else. Been working with the council over the past couple of weeks just to get things back up and running. It's proving to be a little bit of a task, but we're hoping to have a disclaimer to sign hopefully tomorrow, if not Monday, to get back at training hopefully next week, Tuesday, for the seniors. We're starting in 3 stages, so we're starting seniors first, senior men and women, and then we'll start our older juniors in thirds, and then come into our gurus.
Excellent. Craig, you were saying that we can't hear Michelle. Now, I can hear her. Now, we had this issue, I think, with I had this issue on Tuesday with one of the guys. All working guys, keep going. Kaz Bilosh, we can hear you all. Maxi Tonci. Okay, we're back on deck. We're back on deck.
You're not. I can hear you. I'll see you. I can hear you, but I can't see anybody apart from you.
Just keep talking because we can see you, Craig.
Okay.
Now, Michelle, we've talked about in stages. Is there a lot of paperwork from the club's point of view as far as getting council permission? And this is, I guess, something that a lot of the parents, a lot of the players out there, they're itching to get involved, but they actually don't see what's happening behind the scenes. So tell us a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes to try and get us back on the park.
Yeah, well, I think most presidents would agree it's very time-consuming. It's been hours of phone calls to council, trying to just get understanding as to what it means. We had obviously the football framework came out, and we thought that was a go-ahead, but it's actually not. You need Sport and Rec's approval. They're not giving it. They're part of council. It's all government, probably loopholes that we've got to find. Bit of red tape, but yeah, it is pretty time consuming. There's a lot of paperwork. We've sent through all our protocols, our return to play plan. We're just waiting for the disclaimer to come through, which I've heard is about 7 pages long. But once that comes through, we'll get that done and hopefully start next Tuesday.
Craig, we got you back. You're looking pretty scary there, but at least we've got you back. That's the Tommy Gavin says, haha, Craig taking us on a tour. Oh, goodness me. We got to laugh about it. But, the season, will in your eyes, be basically just a stopgap solution to get something happening? And as a president of a club, as your committee talked about, maybe starting the ball rolling to plan for next season already, and just try and get make the best that we can from season 2020.
Yeah, definitely. There's been obviously a lot of rumours around about there's no promotion relegation this year, and that could change a lot of our plans that we've got in place at the moment. As a club, we'll regroup. If that happens, we'll regroup and we'll just try and see.
Great.
I'm in the garage now. I'm in the garage with the. I'm staying here now. There we go.
The punters are saying, just don't end up in the toilet, Craig.
No, I'm in the garage now. We're okay. Sorry, Michelle.
Actually, the reception's really good, Craig.
Sorry. Yeah, that's much better.
It's bloody freezing as well, let me tell you.
Yeah, so we it could look differently if there's no promotion relegation. I think that would change a lot of things for a lot of clubs. Yeah, so we'll see what that looks like, but we've got to act. We haven't been told there is no promotion relegation, so we've got to act like there's something to win, and we'll take off from where we started the pre-season in November last year. It's been a long pre-season, so we'll finally hopefully get started and get a game in and get the ball rolling.
Now, as far as the on-field side of things, we're going to now bring our two the coach and the assistant coach, and they're together and they're practicing social distancing. By the way,
The dynamic duo.
Dynamic duo. They're coming on very, very shortly, and here they are. We've got Dave Farmer and Craig, the assistant coach.
No, I'm definitely not the assistant coach. Tonci, it's Darren TRAYNOR is your coach, mate. I'm definitely not the coach.
There we go. No. Did I say Craig's the assistant coach? You're definitely not the assistant coach. It's me. Gentlemen, how are we? Welcome to the Football Out West show, where comedy is happening at every corner.
Uh,
Hello, gentlemen. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Oh, my goodness me. Wherever you guys are, internet reception is absolutely perfect there. Welcome to the show, gents. How are we?
Very good, guys.
Now, Darren, first of all, over to you. Your thoughts. Will the 2020 season get up off the ground? And what sort of a competition can we expect to see?
Yeah, I think I'm hoping it can get off the ground. It's been a good 12-week pre-season, so we're hoping that it can take off and we can put some of the hard work into place and see some rewards, hopefully. So that's the plan. But as in football, Tonci, as you know, nothing always goes to plan.
Yeah, no, Darren, it's Craig here, so hopefully you can hear me. Obviously, you came in. Hi, mate. You came in at the start of back in December time, and you had a good 2 or 3 months, as you say, pre-season, and things were looking good from reports that we were hearing and social media posts that we were seeing that things were going really well, and then the train stopped abruptly. How much of a hindrance has that put on you as a coach and what have you been doing behind the scenes to really engage with the players through this difficult period for everybody?
Yeah, no, very good question, Craig. It's been tough. I mean, obviously we've kept in contact through our internal platforms at the club, and just trying to keep the players updated as much as possible. The club's been fantastic. Michelle and her board have been terrific, and David, my assistant, and the reserve coach in Rob. It's been good. So we're just trying to keep in contact with them through various platforms, and just trying to keep them positive and hopefully letting them know that we'll be back on the park sooner rather than later. But again, as we all know, it's changing week to week, and it's just the unknown. It's just trying to keep everyone positive because we're in a really good place, to be perfectly honest with you. It was a really, really healthy environment, really positive. Things are looking up. We're playing some nice football. We had played about 9 pre-season games, had a good weekend away in Myrtleford, which involved a fundraising opportunity there for Myrtleford with the bushfire, plus a few games of football with a couple of state league clubs. So it was really good. So everything was going well, and then it's come to a halt. But we've just kept in contact with players. Everything's been positive. Behind the scenes, Michelle and her crew have been unbelievable. So they've been really, really working so hard to get us back on track, and hopefully with a smooth transition. And if it's a 4-week pre-season, it's a 4-week pre-season. We'll do our best. End of the day, we need to make sure we've got the players' duty of care at first and foremost. That's paramount. So for me, it's about making sure if we can get some injury prevention involved and making sure that there's no injuries leading into, if it is going to be end of June, that we're fully fit and everyone's available. There's nothing more than trying to come out like a bull out of a gate and players break down.
Now, Dave,
Michelle, just a question from me because I haven't had many questions this evening, so I'm going to try and get one in. How was the works going with council? Because Melton Council have been one of the foremost, I suppose, councils in terms of ground improvements in Victoria, certainly in the western suburbs. And I know there was a lot of work being spoken about in pre-season. How's that looking, and how are the grounds shaping up there at McPherson Park?
Yeah, so the AstroTurf is looking like it's coming on board in the next week or so.
Unfortunately, I can't hear you. We'll see you.
No.
I can hear you. So
no.
continue.
Continue. Do I keep? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, the AstroTurf is coming on board in the next week or so, so we'll have that as an asset to us as well. New fencing going up. Yeah, the council's been great in that regard. Definitely the soccer strategy, actually, the draft has been released for our area. So we're hoping that we can get hold of that and have some input, and also our McPherson Park master plan.
Yep.
That actually comes out in the next, I think it's in June, and then we get to sit down and actually go through that and what that means for us. So hopefully we get some more facilities out of that and new club rooms.
Now, just before the coronavirus, the lockdown, I suppose, if you like, we were right at the start of the season. So, enthusiasm was very, very, at an optimum level. Everyone was looking forward to a great year. And then all of a sudden we've had this break. Dave, question for you as the assistant coach.
Yeah.
I guess everyone's in the same boat, aren't they? At the end of the day, whether it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
I can't hear anyone.
Don't worry, I can. Dave, you can hear me.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we'll continue. Forget about the rest. How difficult is it reigniting that excitement, reigniting that passion, or are the players just raring to go?
Yeah, good question, Tonci. It's been a tough one. We really had a great culture that kicked off, like Darren said, midway through November. A totally new look for the club, to be honest, and we got it to a point where we'd had a few little niggly injuries and guys that had come back to the club. It was all just going really well. In terms of other teams, I think we're all, like you said, we're all in the same boat. I think we all want something to play for. We all really want to play for points and have something to aim for. Players are getting frustrated, with communication I've had with some of the boys. It's just hard to get motivated when it's the unknown. And I guess it's a lot with everything that's going on in the community, not just sport, but everything that we're involved in. It's just not having that, that assurity that that's how it's going to play out. And I think guys are getting very itchy feet and just want some reassurance that it's going to be for something. We've got a goal to work towards and we can get going again. So, yeah.
And if the season goes ahead, gents, either of you, if the season does go ahead as they're suggesting that it could go, into October, into possibly November, into December, the prospect of coaching or playing, in the warmer months, on a positive, that must be something that everyone will be looking forward to.
Yeah, it certainly does, especially at McPherson Park. So it'd be quite nice to be there in October and November, to be honest. But yeah, I think it'll just be similar to when you have a big break at work, you go on a nice holiday and you come back and the first day might be a battle. But I think by the second session, guys will be back into it. We've got a fairly young squad that are fairly adaptable, and I'm sure there'll be no issue getting the motivation back up.
Yeah, excellent, and that's something I think everyone is just itching to get back. And look, even speaking to a lot of clubs, I guess, Michelle, maybe you could probably answer this question. Look, there's probably a little bit of frustration about you can't do full contact at training, and you can only have groups of 10 when squads are 15 and 16. But I guess that's just the first step in getting back to some sort of normality. I think once we get back to a normal season and everything's operating as per normal, everyone will be excited. Everyone will be just happy to be back. No, we've lost Michelle. Looks like we've lost Michelle, unfortunately. Craig, are you still there? No, looks like we've lost Craig as well, have we?
We're still here, Tonci.
Still here, Tonci.
You're still here. You guys are still here. Well, look, at the end of the day, well, you are here, and then join us. Oh, well, fantastic. I don't know if Michelle can hear us. Can Michelle hear us?
Michelle's gone.
No, looks like Michelle's gone. Not to worry. Look up.
Brilliant. It's not just Point Cook.
Yeah. Oh, we've had all this.
I'm
is
here.
like a
I can't see
reunion.
anybody, but I'm here. The garage is freezing cold.
It's like a reunion. I tell you what,
I'm back on now. Apparently.
And this is what it's going to be. It's going to be like one big party when we all. You see it on social media. Sometimes, people are saying this is what it's going to be like when we all return from coronavirus, and then there's this like crazy pandemonium, but it's pure joy, and I think that's what's going to happen, folks. Thank you very much.
Do you know the funny thing, Tonci? You
Yes,
could be saying absolutely anything. You could be calling me all the things in the sun, and I wouldn't have a clue what you're saying, mate. So crack on.
We're going to have to give him the yellow card, I reckon. Folks, seriously, thank you for joining us, and at such short notice. Wishing you all the very best, and hopefully once we're back in action, we'll have Melton Phoenix as our featured club, and we'll be able to talk a lot more about what is happening.
Thanks, Tonci.
Thanks, guys. All the very, very best, and take care. Okay, and that was the Melton Phoenix crew with the latest of what is happening. Craig, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can see you, but it's too late now because the show's finished.
Too late because the show's finished, and we're about to finish up now. So, mate, now before we do go, this is what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for the unveiling of what is going to happen. Mate, take it away. Tell us what is going to happen.
I'm not sure people want to know after tonight's performance, to be honest with you, Tonci, but we'll announce it anyway.
Yeah.
But, look, due to the numbers that we've had and the numbers we're getting on a regular basis, tonight aside, we try and put on a great show week in, week out with some fantastic guests. And, even ringing around today at last minute to get Ron on was a big achievement for us. And we know we've got some huge guests coming up over the next couple of weeks. But unfortunately for us, it is a football show, and we want people to get involved in the show. But sometimes when we've got guests on, it's just impossible to get questions through, get people's thoughts on stuff. So what we've decided to do is on a Sunday evening, we're gonna run another show, basically called the Football Fan Zone, where we're gonna open up the lines for an hour. We're gonna get our listeners, clubs, supporters, anybody who's involved in football to phone in, providing the internet's good and the phone lines work.
Yeah.
To talk about football, anything goes on a Sunday evening. The plan is that obviously when the season comes back, there'll be a lot of talk about fixtures on the weekend, results, etc., etc. So I suppose the big news is, starting this Sunday at 7:00, we'll have a new show that's really all about our listeners and getting them involved.
It's called the Football Fan Zone, Sundays at 7 p.m. That's not the whole name of the show. The Football Fan Zone, powered by Football Out West Show. We want you to ring us up. We want you to talk to us, and the number that it's going to be is 0497 151234. So jot that number down and give us a call from 7 p.m. We're going to be live and talk about anything. There's going to be no limits as long as you don't swear, and as long as you don't say anything about Craig or me and our hairstyles or our bad hairstyles. That's why I wear caps, by the way. But that's why you wear a cap as well. Yep, it's basically about the fans, for the fans. We haven't had an opportunity tonight to really talk, to put a lot of the comments, because the content has been so rich tonight. But talkback show every Sunday night. If we don't have vision, at least we're going to have audio, and that's all that matters. We're going to test drive it. We're going to go for half an hour, assuming that we do have enough people to talk or to ring in. But it doesn't matter. Craig and I can talk and discuss things. And Craig, today we started talking about one thing, and we ended up in a 15-minute conversation. So I'm sure we won't be short of any ideas, but it's not about you. It's not about me. We want people to ring in to be able to contribute, because there's a lot happening out in the West. And look, they say football is a game of opinions. And one thing I'd like to see is more ladies involved. We had Michelle Williamson on tonight, but we're just not getting enough females engaging in our shows, and we want to hear more females. So we want the girls out there. We want the men out there. We want the kids out there.
Just before you suck, I think, Darren, just to let you know, the phone lines are not open yet, mate.
We're getting phone calls already. There you go. That's great. I'm excited. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Football Fan Zone makes its premiere this Sunday night, 7 p.m, live on our Facebook page, the Football Out West News, and it's going to be groundbreaking. It's going to take our ability to really spread the word and to get our opinions to a whole new level. I'm excited, Craig. I hope you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Another evening of fun, no doubt, and frolicking, and we'll get lots of people phoning in, and we'll have a great show. So really looking forward to it. And apologies to everybody for tonight. As you can see, I'm sat in my garage here. It's bloody freezing, but unfortunately, I can't do anything about the internet when the internet fails. So hopefully, I'll get that up and running by Saturday. Oh, sorry, by Sunday. Even though I'll be sat in the car, but we'll get it working.
Get it ready by Saturday, so that just in case we need to do some final last-minute tweaks, we'll be able to. On that note, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It has been a mammoth show. We've been going for an hour and 30 minutes plus. It has been an epic show, as they say. On behalf of Craig Filer, who's been here half the program, and myself, Tonci Prusac, we thank you for being involved, and thank you for staying with us till the very end. We'll catch you next Thursday at 7 p.m. But at the same time, before that, we're going to catch you on Sunday night for the launch of our new talkback show. The
Football Fan Zone, Tonch. Go on. You've had enough. Get a beer down you, mate. Off you go.
That's it. The Football Fan Zone. Good night.